Hello and welcome to episode 66. Today we have a very special, very special guest, the other person of this manor, Louise Furlong. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
We're stuck for guests this week because we're in lockdown. But
backup plan.
We're going to dive into a number of questions, but first, what people probably don't know about you is that you were nearly named Fanny. Is that right? Fanny Furlong.
Yeah, thanks for that one, Dad. Yeah. That was the I don't know, that's my dad's idea of a good name.
Good old P.
Yeah.
And I bet you're...
Thankfully my mum knew better.
Oh dear.
Shout out to my mum, thank you.
Could have made your school a little bit more interesting.
Oh, yeah. It was interesting enough. I didn't need that on my plate as well.
I know. So, today, what we're going to talk about, we're obviously in lockdown now in Sydney, and you had thought it would be a good idea, not a good idea, but you wanted to tick off your bucket list for a while to do some kind of, like, fitness photo shoot, not the type of kind of stuff maybe you see on Instagram, whatever, but more for yourself, just to say like you've ticked it off the list. So we're going to go through that, but then we're also going to go through like how you started, how you came into fitness and health, because it was probably the unconventional way as well, so it's kind of a bit more relatable for most people versus you just were born looking unbelievable at six-pack. So yes, it was kind of something on your tick list, wasn't it, to do like a photo shoot? You're not even an Instagram person or whatever, you don't really like that kind of stuff, but
yeah, I struggle with that hard. But yeah, I guess once you have been training for a while and you enjoy it, which I do, I had some goals that I wanted to achieve in terms of numbers in the gym, and that's always been my driving force. And plus I enjoy it, so like it's really, training's one of the easier things for me. I kind of wanted to definitely see where I can push my limits a bit, which I've done before, but I didn't really have a specific goal or a target. So I went good for a while, and then it would kind of just, when things started getting hard, as they do with anyone who's ever done a competition or photo shoot prep, like when you're starting to be like, well, why am I even doing this? Last time I did it, I didn't have a why, so I just kind of was like, oh, actually this is a really big change in my lifestyle, and also takes away a lot from my lifestyle. I became really not antisocial, but there's certain things that suddenly you can't do. Eating out becomes problematic, this, that and the other. And then I was like, well, why am I doing this? This isn't making me happy. So then that kind of went out the window, and then I was just training to feel good, which was great, and maintained excellently for a while and just enjoyed what I was doing. But then as we were talking, we've got some goals coming up that we wanted to hit. So before life proceeds in that direction, I wanted to do something for me that I've wanted to do for ages, but I just, not that I haven't had the drive to do it, but I didn't have a specific target in mind, and now I was like, okay, now's the time.
yeah, you wanted to do some kind of photo shoot, whatever, before you have a family with it, but you're like, yeah, well, because we do enjoy eating out, this is probably a perfect time to do it now, because there's normally always stuff on, and it's not to say that you can't lose fat and eat out. Ideally, that's what you're trying to do, get that right balance. But when you're trying to get like more extreme levels of fat loss and you're on lower calories, like you can't do both. There's just a trade-off. And this
is definitely not something I'd want to be doing long term, and it's not something that I think is a sustainable goal. So it's almost the opposite of what you encourage most people to do.
Yeah.
However, an idea of doing a body composition, though, I think for those that can do it and want to do it, it's unbelievable if you can get to that level of that kind of physique. You know, you see people do their comps. I think it's incredible, but it's just never been something that I've gone, oh yeah, that's what I want to do. The same way as like photo shoots, although I am doing one because I needed a goal. Again, it's not, I don't go, oh, I actually hate photos. I hate them. I hate everything about them. Hence not really liking Instagram. So it's kind of like, it's a bit of pushing myself out of my comfort zone as well with something different.
Yeah, and there's trade-offs, as we've talked about before, with people that do shows and etc. Like photo shoot, what we said is probably a bit of a better goal for most people if they wanted to do that, because to get on stage, like, that's extreme starvation to the last bit, which can stuff up your like psychology a little bit, your relationship with food and your metabolism, in the sense that like that's the unhealthy, and it can leave you in a worse position afterwards. A photo shoot, you don't need to get as lean for it. Yeah, and that's what like you're gonna pay someone to filter it a little bit and make it look a bit better. You don't need to be completely shredded. And
definitely coming from a background where I did fall into a bit of an issue with food psychologically at some stage that I've battled really hard to get out of. It's, you know, I don't want to go down that route again, really, because I've worked so hard to not have a bit of a odd relationship with food. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting 18 weeks.
Yeah, but there's some things we're going to talk about. Like, if someone's listening, it might be like, just starting the fat loss. It's not saying we're to go in and aim for this. Like, this is, it's probably like at the end of a whole few years of things that we're going to go through. But even coming back, like, as we said, people probably look at you now and go, oh, she's fit, she's always been fit. But it wasn't really like that, was it? Like, runs back to probably your school days. What were you like? You like training now, but tell us your relationship with exercise and food back then.
Oh, it was, well, first off, I guess I was really unaware of any relationship with food. Food was just there. So when you're not thinking about it, I guess it's kind of a whole different ball game. So then, I guess previously, I didn't really do anything at all in terms of fitness. Just your usual steps between classes.
Yeah, but even with food, you were like, you said if you were unhappy at school, like, you'd go home and, although you probably didn't know why, but you would eat junk food to make you feel better. Like, you fell into that cycle that had a miserable day at school, these girls that's chatting shit. Okay, I'm just going to go home and get a lot of junk food and sit there, and that's going to make me happy. I don't know why, but it does, and I'm just going to do it.
Yeah, well, now looking back on it, now I know what that was, but yeah, for sure, I used to come home. My dad used to have like cereal, so that would be like come home after school, granola, that with like, there was always tub of peanut butter, tub of Nutella, so that went in there. And then no one's home, so you just kind of like, oh, your TV program's on, whatever, no one's home, I'm meant to be doing my homework, but I'm not doing it. And then you're kind of back and forth, and you're hitting all of those dopamine receptors, right? It's like you're hitting your salt, carbs, sugar, your fats, everything all in one. So it's really easy to just keep going with it, which I definitely did. And then after I left home, that went from being, because it was, when I left, I didn't have money, so I wouldn't buy all of those things. So that then turned into what most people do at uni, which is like £1 shots and, you know, student uni beers, and we were drinking every night, and that's normal university situations. And then you get a £5 pizza, and that was kind of your diet, and maybe a sausage roll from Greg's.
Yeah, but at school then you obviously you put on a bit of weight.
Yeah, so I definitely
probably not what is
hit puberty,
overweight,
and it just kind of spiraled.
Yeah, as we can see now, when you understand calories, how easy it is consistently over time. Easy. Like,
yeah, well, especially not moving, and especially at school, I veered towards subjects that stopped me from, you know, I sat around doing coursework a lot, so I wasn't out doing things, and I was always inside editing or doing something. So, yeah, and I didn't like going outside. Hated it. My mum used to have to pull me out. So, and I think that's typical for a lot of teenagers. They'd rather be doing something else.
And then the one thing where you were probably active PE, but then, which is crazy, like what you're saying, the PE teacher used to like pick on you because you weren't probably gifted athletically, or
I don't know what was wrong with my PE teacher. She was the devil.
Yeah, Miss Trunchable.
Oh, completely. I don't even know whether it was because I wasn't good at it. I think it was just I was so uninfused by it that she would just get angry and she'd just shout. Well, and also I don't know about anyone else's school, but they tried to make us do gymnastics. Now, I'm not built for gymnastics.
Yeah, most people aren't.
You had to wear this like you had to get into like what is now like gym trousers, but like a leotard, full like full arms, full leotard. And I just remember being like, I feel like I'm trying to pack a sausage, and I feel disgusting, and then this woman's shouting at me to do the splits or try and bounce on a trampoline, and I'm like, oh lady, I'm gonna kill you. Yeah. So I would always get out of that. I'd tell mum I got my period. I'd do whatever I could to get a letter to not do that class, because no way.
Which is mad. And obviously like coming back now for training people, like you're always trying to get that right mix of something that person enjoys, as well. Like you can't just force someone into doing something they don't enjoy. It's not going to stick with it.
I think if at school I'd been introduced to weights or a gym, which they did later on, but not at the beginning. The first is like team sports, which I was horrendous at, and like I don't like things being thrown. I don't like balls flying in my direction because I'm not coordinated. Good one, Sean. So it's kind of like after that, I think we've seen some videos recently, which I think is brilliant, of kids at school being taught how to squat, deadlift, light weights, but just basic movement patterns. I think if I'd been taught that at school, it would have been a different ball game.
It's looking back like the same way you would probably teach someone a language, where you teach someone the basics, and then go more advanced. Obviously, later on, they should do the same things with movements. Like you shouldn't be going straight to gymnastics. You should be teaching someone how to jump and land properly. Like get the strength to be able to do that. I have a whole system where I'm like, let's just do random stuff where I took it for granted because I was always athletic. So I would probably be, if we're doing team sports, I'd be aiming at you in volleyball. I'd be taking a serve and going, when I hit at that kid.
And there were plenty of kids that did that, which is another reason why I hate it.
But then you never see from another perspective, and then actually look at how the syllabus is, where like it's not structured. And then you obviously look at that now and go, well, if they did that properly, it could have changed my whole outlook on health and fitness.
Absolutely.
And how many other people's now in the same boat?
I think there's heaps. I don't know what the education system's like now in the UK, but here I see the the girls' school. There's a girls' school around the corner from us, and I see them doing athletics outside. They'll take them swimming in the sea. All of these things, you're like, damn, okay. But then you've got the weather for it here as well, which helps the situation. But yeah, definitely was not into it at school. And then it was only until I think I left uni. I started doing a bit of swimming in uni.
But did the PE teacher, because I've talked about before about like how so many different factors come together with someone kind of gaining weight. Like you obviously have environmental, psychological, which then you're eating for happiness, but then stuff people have like said, like did the PE teacher say stuff that give you like a complex with you training, or just turn you off completely because you're like, well, now I just don't associate this with fun at all?
Yeah, well, if you did anything wrong, you'd have to do a 12-minute run.
Wow. And
so like, if you complained about something, she'd be like, right, round the pitch for 12 minutes. And that 12 minutes felt like
a lifetime, yeah.
A lifetime. Yeah. And I hated it. And then, what else would they make? Oh, and then if you were really bad, they'd make you go around the whole pitch. So like, they wouldn't really say much to you. They'd just scream at you, obviously, because you're far away. So I just associated any sports with being screamed at and pain and being cold, because it was always wet and rainy. Yeah. And I just was like, oh fuck this. This is shit.
Well, it's like any subject. If you have a bad teacher or a bad way of setting it up, of course you're not going to like it. The whole point of the teacher should be to get the people that don't like the subject
to like it. Yeah, for sure. I don't think I think I came into a bit of a head with one of my PE teachers, because I was a bit of a goth at school.
Yeah, you had the emo shirts.
And she didn't like that. It freaked her out for some reason. And I remember her one time, I don't know what she was. She was the devil. She wasn't a Christian.
You're the devil, but if you have these goth teachers on.
I know, but listen, I remember her screaming at me for something, wearing eyeliner or something, and telling me that I looked scary or something, like, you look scary. Like, I can't even remember what she said now, but I just remember being screamed at, and I remember kind of standing there and being like, oh, this, what is going on here? So, yeah. Anyway, moving on from that.
And then was there, because a lot of other people talk about the develop food complexes, again, like, it's your environment, but people say something, or was there any other occasions like that where anyone said anything about your food eating or your exercise or gave you complex that way, or you were just completely unaware of kind of what you were doing?
No, I was just completely unaware. Yeah. Just complete unaware. I mean, the other thing that fueled into a lot of the issues that I then had later on was like first boyfriends, stuff like that. Like, that was boys say stuff and you kind of go, oh fuck, like, okay, all right. Like, I had someone grab some fat on me and be like, oh, you'd be better off if you'd lost this.
Yeah, it's mad.
So it's more what people say to you.
Well, that's what I mean, saying, like, someone's giving you complexes about something.
Yeah. No, never around food. Like, no one ever said anything
your body
about
image.
Food, body image, definitely. I had a boyfriend, like, grab the upper bit of my tummy and tell me that it was about the same size as my boobs. Yeah, and I was like, oh my God, is it? And then I got a complex about that, and then I was like, oh my God, how do I change this? Yeah. And then I kind of went, oh, I don't know how, so I just forgot about it. But it obviously was like in there. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's the little stuff all that can add up. And
yeah. People are cruel. People say shit.
Well, even when we had Tara on the podcast, and her parents gave her a complex about what she's eating. Like, are you eating again? And then she would go and eat in a room in private, in secret, and then binge eat in secret, and then that's it. Habit that carried on. And if people develop these complexes, that's something where it can, like, that could be one of the aspects holding you back.
Yeah, I think not intentionally. Like, people, like, some people say some cruel stuff without knowing that they're saying cruel stuff. Some people do it knowingly as well. That happened to me at school a lot. Mm-hmm. But that kind of stuff you can brush off. But then, like, without putting any negativity onto, like, my mum, like, I remember her always saying stuff about her legs, how much she hates her legs. And then as I grew, as I developed, I've got her same structure. So I developed the same feelings that she has. Like, I always remember her being like, putting on chest, being like, oh, I feel like, oh, it's so tight around my legs. Ugh, I feel, ugh. And, like, as I developed, I understood her feelings because I was getting them too. And those were never intentional from her at all. But just hearing someone say it and then having those feelings, you go, oh, yeah, I feel that too. So it's that, I guess that's an association. Yeah,
it's a learned
association, right? So that gave me a complex about my legs for sure. And that's still, I don't think that's ever going to go away.
Yeah, gosh, it was just 20 years too early. If she was around now in Instagram age with big bums, and she'd be killing it.
She'd be fine, yeah.
I have the same legs as my mum, in fairness. Little chicken wings.
You've got good legs. So what are you talking about?
Yeah,
your mum's got good legs as well.
They're not the best to buy jeans.
Yeah, but they're good for sports.
Yeah, for sports, yeah.
Which is what you do, so.
And then even like obviously interested in the learned association. That's why you're not afraid of creepy crawlies like I am, aren't you? Because your dad, like, he never used to freak out when he used to see all the.
No, my dad loves bugs and creepy crawlies, and
which is how we're completely opposite. If
Yeah.
I see anything around here, I'm gone. And Louise is over, like, taking
I'm like,
pictures of it,
"Oh,
naming it.
what
Fucking,
spider is this?
Yeah.
What is this? Is this one a deadly one?
I'm like, it's
"Yeah,
about to be a
fucking
dead
kill
one.
it,
Get that fucking thing
kill
out
it."
here.
Oh, thanks for that one, Dad.
So then you went into uni. But everyone's university is the same way anyway. So that's probably not any different
No,
to most people
not in the
anyway.
UK anyway.
But you did go to a little artsy fartsy college
Yeah.
with all your
Well, listen. I think
creatives.
to be honest, any university is the same for sure. Theatre definitely didn't help the situation. It has a big drinking culture. You finish a show, all right, off to the pub we go. That's definitely part of it. And the same way, it's like you're meeting new people, so you're socialising more, and drink helps that situation a lot as well. And I had a blast. I wouldn't.
What was it, Rad?
Yeah, Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts. But it was the best time. It was the best. I enjoyed it thoroughly. I wouldn't change that for the world.
Master's degree in being a drama queen, was that?
Thanks. Yeah. Yeah.
That did help.
Yeah.
And then you start working obviously in the theatre after.
Yeah.
Background.
Yeah, well, actually, that that association that you say, it's obviously like you say about who you're surrounded by can change your habits.
Yeah.
And I was at uni, and I actually was there on my own, surrounded by actually like my friends from there. I'm still friends with now. Had a blast. We all lived together in a house. It was literally some of the best times of my life. And then I started dating a boy, and he was actually, in comparison to me, was very sporty, very active. So that got me thinking, oh, he does all of this, like, shit, maybe I should be doing something, because I'm doing nothing, I'm just drinking. So that was kind of my first look into that. And he did martial arts, and so I was like, well, I used to do martial arts, but I don't think I'd really be keen on doing that now, so what can I do? And that's when I started swimming.
Yeah.
But he rollerbladed, so then I started rollerblading again, because I used to rollerblade as a kid, because I was like, oh, this is great, I've got my rollerblades still at home.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there I was rollerblading to and from uni, and then after that I was like, oh, this is hard work on the streets of London, because it is. So I was like, well, how can I do this better? Bought a bike got nicked, bought another bike.
Because you live in London.
Thanks, London. But yeah, and then after that, I started working. So I just would always, wherever I was working near, I'd try and find like a leisure centre that I could go swim in or do something.
What was your claim to fame again when you were working? Who'd you drop? Because you tell everyone what you worked at, like.
Yeah, so I worked as a scenic painter for ballet, opera, as well as like props and stuff. For
Degrees in art. What do you call, like?
Scenic painting.
Scenic painting.
Yeah. So I kind of worked at the Royal Opera House for a bit, and then I worked as a freelance for a lot of different places, which meant that you're not in a routine, you're all over the place, and I loved that. That was great. But yeah, I was on stage one night and managed to drop a bucket of paint on Benedict Cumberbatch, so that was that was a good one. He was very polite about it.
He seems like a nice guy anyway, and obviously lived up to that.
Yeah, he was just like, oh, no worries, it's fine. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, what? He had some expensive suit on, did he?
Probably. Well, it was probably a costume.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so he was fine. But yeah, and then so we did that for a while, and then I came here.
No, you started going to the gym there.
Well, I started going. Yeah,
that was your first introduction.
Yeah.
So you bought some program off someone we won't name, just some generic.
Yeah.
But by the sounds of it, was all right. It gave you a little introduction. The nutrition wise, probably like not the worst.
Actually, it was good. It was good.
For what?
Looking back at the program, it was a good program. Because I moved in with some friends who were circus performers, and they were getting really into training, and they were actually just got engaged, so they were kind of getting ready for their wedding. And I was like, Laura started doing her stuff, and I was like, oh, this looks really good. Like, I want to do that too.
Yeah, but they're machines anyway, Laura.
Oh, yes, they were awesome. And also they knew what they were doing. So being given a program was kind of like, probably where I'm at now if you gave me a program. Whereas I was beginner.
Oh, they did it with you?
Well, Laura was doing her own one, yeah.
Her own one,
yeah. Same, but different. Obviously, different weights and stuff. I remember looking at her and being like, oh my god, she lifts so much weight.
Yeah, but she's lovely, but she's genetic freak, like.
But she's
trains
also been
hard.
trained.
Yeah, trains for.
She's been training circus training, so like flexibility, strength.
But talk us through then. Obviously, going in to your local gym, is that when you joined the gym local?
Yeah. So I joined the gym in Lewisham, which is where I'm from, and started training there. And
Lewisham, for anyone who doesn't know it, what's the predominant background? Like Jamaican, Caribbean.
Yeah. It's
African background.
Yeah, well, it's a mix of everything. You've got everything there. You've got.
But even when I walked into the gym, I was intimidated. Like.
Yeah, there's a lot of gym bros. Let's face it. It's regardless of.
No, that's anywhere.
From. It's like, but this gym in particular was like, it started off as a fitness first.
Oh, okay.
So it started off as like it was a bit more leisurely, if that makes sense. So it had more classes. That's when I signed up.
Then all the man them joined.
Something like that. Well, then as the years progressed, it turned from like
leisure.
Well, like what do they call, like the passport gyms?
Yeah.
So you know how like if you sign up in the city, you can use the ones everywhere. Because it was really expensive for that area, not a lot of people would sign up there. Yeah. So the gym wasn't being used. So I think they weren't making enough sign-ups, enough profit from whatever they were doing. So Fitness First sold it to some other gym. Cheaper. Soho Gym. And then from there it changed to something else. And then it just kind of went from budget to more budget to more budget. But then when we went back, they revamped it and it's nice now. It's a nice gym.
It was intimidating because
it's like a bodybuilder gym.
Yeah, but then the background traditionally for these background Caribbean, African, like genetically they're off the charts. So they just look at weights and they're growing muscle. I'm walking in like a little skinny white boy. I'm like, Jesus Christ. I'm supposed to be a PT here. These guys are powering over me.
Yeah. So it's good though. It's good.
No, I'm not saying it's not good. When you get to know them, everyone's lovely.
No, but as in like it's good. It's good to see people lift that kind of the weights that they're lifting. Cause you're
but then I'm just like, I give up here. No. But for you, obviously, you joined them when it was a bit easier. You got a program.
Yeah.
Food wise, you got some kind of structure. Then you start to see results.
Well, no. Like with the program that I got off this really good lady, to be honest, she lined out kind of like a structured eating plan. She asked me, if I go back through the emails, actually, she asked me really good questions about.
Yeah, but it's probably not her. It's probably someone work from it, some generic thing. Anyway, go on.
It wasn't, but it actually wasn't.
Go, keep going.
It wasn't. It was one of Laura's friends who's a PT. I'm not talking about the other one that I did.
Okay.
I did two. You
did
this one first.
Fitspo.
Yeah, that was another one. I'm not even talking about that one because that one wasn't even worth talking about.
Oh, well, I thought that's the good one. Okay, that's fine.
Maybe cut that bit.
No. No, go, keep going. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so.
Talk into the mic. Come into my podcast studio. Abide by my rules. Keep going.
Lord of the mic. Alright.
So then you got that food plan and you started to see results with that, with the program?
Yeah, I did. Well, because she basically asked me a heap of questions about my routine, what I was doing. And I actually read back the email recently. She was like, you're not eating enough. She wasn't wrong. Did I listen? No.
What you're saying, you're not eating enough good food. Like, you're overeating on calories.
Yeah, 100%.
You're not eating enough good food.
But I also was... No. At the time, I just was not eating enough.
Or are you trying to diet too hard?
Yeah,
okay.
For my output. Because I was doing 5 classes a week. Probably more, because I was doubling up some nights. I'd do spin and body pump. Not knowing what I was doing, so it probably wasn't really doing anything. But I was cycling to work 45 minutes, active at work, on my feet all day. Then I'd cycle 45 minutes back home, back to the gym. Then I'd train for 2 hours, and then I'd cycle home, and I was probably consuming about 1,200 calories of shit.
Yeah.
So I really wasn't eating enough at all of anything.
And then just before the point where most people would do that and then binge out, she's obviously told you to eat a bit more to prevent that.
But so then I'd do great Monday through Friday.
Yeah.
Come the weekend, where I was at home all day, I'd do an exercise class Saturday morning. That would be my thing for the weekend. And then the rest of the weekend would be binge city.
Yeah. Well, then that's the routine like most people, where they try to diet so hard during the week, and then the body says, nah, it's not going to happen on the weekend.
Today. Yeah.
Plus, all the other factors that we associate with the weekend, and you were getting your Dominoes and all that kind of stuff.
And then, I'd have Dominoes on a Friday night with the cookie and everything on top. Yeah. And a double rum and coke and whatever else. But at the same time, it was like I was getting frustrated because I was like, okay, what's going on here? I'm literally dropping dead at night. I'm so tired. My body's physically exhausted. Yeah. And I look like I don't train. And here I am busting my ass at the gym. I don't look like I go to the gym. And I remember always saying to one of the trainers that was at the gym, I was like, I'm here all the time. I don't look like I come to the gym. I want to look like I want to look like the hours that I'm putting in are there, because I'm looking at what these other girls are doing and they're doing the same hours, but they look unbelievable and I look the same.
Again, a common thing where people, you want to look more toned, but then they don't eat enough protein, they probably diet too hard and just look like a smaller version of themselves. They haven't toned up at all.
I didn't even look like a smaller version of myself.
Well, you're probably eating those calories back then the weekend. And then not eating enough protein during the week.
Yeah.
So this girl got you on it, increase your calories that are still in a deficit. I think when most people go, you need to eat more, they're like, all right, happy days. And just blow with the calories. But like,
whereas I was the opposite. I was scared to eat that amount of food.
You're going from an extreme deficit to just a nice moderate deficit. That means you can be more consistent.
Yeah. But also I remember switching and I remember being like, oh my God, this is too much food.
Mm-hmm.
How am I going to lose weight on this? This is too much food. And I remember actually not following the plan because I was like, I can't eat that much carbs. I can't eat that much. Yeah. I don't trust it. And so, like, ironically, the process that I'm going through now, it's kind of leveled up one more time. And at the moment, I'm at the same point where I'm like, this is too much food. I can't do this. But it's because it's
food volume, not calories.
Not calories.
That's cool. So that was the first, and then you got good results for that. You're consistent.
Yeah, I started to lose fat, but then I didn't have muscle mass underneath the fat because I'd never. First off, I wasn't eating enough protein before, so even though I'd upped my protein, then it wasn't enough. But also, secondly, I wasn't really weight training. I was sort of flailing around all over the place, really, doing body pump and insanity.
Which is all right. I think at the start, you'll get good beginner gains of it because it's just some kind of resistance. But to progress over time, you need like progressive overload of stuff. And
also good technique, right? Because it's like I was just sort of throwing stuff around and using momentum, and then as someone teaches you how to actually do something, you're like, oh, okay, this is a different story. Yeah.
Then you came over to Australia, met me, and then that was the end.
And then disaster struck.
But even obviously me being a PT, we always outsource your coaching because you don't listen to me, ironically. Like,
I can't do it. I did at the beginning. Then what
happened?
And then I went back to England because I'd had enough of you. No, I'm joking. Well, no, I did.
No, I don't...
And then it just became problematic because I was back in the UK and you were here, so you couldn't really train me. And so I was kind of doing it over videos. And then my dear friend Poku helped me because I was just a mess. And so that changed everything a little bit. Started weight training properly. But then I came back.
This is the definition of online training when you used to ring me having freakouts in the gym. Probably 12 o'clock.
Practice in though.
12 o'clock at night where I had to be up at 5 the next day, and you're like, watch me train now. You just put the fucking phone on like a dumbbell rack, and then I'd just be watching your chest press.
I'd be like, is this right? Does this look right?
And you're like, don't go anywhere. Wait there.
1 a.m.
Oh my days.
Thank you. I'm sorry. But yeah, so there was that time. That was fun. And then I came here and then I started training with Nigel because very quickly we decided that we can't train together. There's nothing wrong with that.
It's not we can't train together. It's you don't listen to me.
Okay, yeah.
You don't take what I say serious.
Yeah, okay. I'll take that one.
Like if I give you a compliment, you're like, oh no, you're just saying that you're my boyfriend.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. But that just means that you can't train me is what I'm saying. We can train together, but you can't train me.
No,
I'm too much for you.
Yeah.
You can't handle it. That's the...
But Nigel, obviously, like one of my colleagues who I learned from anyway, so he's brilliant. He was perfect to refer to in that regard. And then, so this was kind of... You probably lost your transformation from when... There's some pictures of when you were a teenager, obviously when you didn't lift, to now looking like...
Well, it's interesting because actually the big change for me was when I came back from travelling.
Yeah.
I was training with another trainer and my mate Tara, and we were training together. And we were training together here in Sydney. Then I went and did my travel along the coast. And I came back and I hadn't been training because I didn't have a gym access, and you're constantly traveling, and again you're drinking more, you're eating different things. The choices you have are limited when you're kind of traveling through places. So yeah, so you kind of end up, and you're socializing more. So anyway, so then I came back to Sydney, probably like the heaviest I'd ever been, and mainly through fat, with not a good body composition. Yeah. And I remember being like, Tara, we're doing this. We've got to do this. So we started training together. And then that's kind of when I met you. And then I went back to London. And then I came back. And after that, in London, what I'd ended up doing, I went for a bit of a time, but I ended up running a lot, like 10K every day. And that was more my mental health, to be honest. Like I needed to do that. So again, I'd lost a lot of weight, but it wasn't necessarily the healthiest thing. And again, I kind of was overeating, undereating, and it was kind of a bit of a cycle.
Yeah, you've gone through phases, and like most people do, still have good habits around training, but sometimes when I have like a more moderate approach, like a calorie deficit, if you're like, all right, I want to lean up a little bit, mentally it's harder for you because you get a lot of weight fluctuations like everyone. So if you get on the scales one day and it's up, you're like, oh, fucked it. And so then that could like be a cascade. Even though over time you kind of learned that that's a cycle, still a lot of times doesn't make it any easier.
Yeah, definitely. Even knowing everything that I know and listening to all of the people that I know around me, I know a lot of trainers, I know a lot of PTs. And even knowing what I know, it's still really hard not to fall into that trap of like the scales. Not the scales define you, because they don't define you, but it definitely, I jump on the scales, I'm like, oh, it's up. I messed up. Maybe I should take my calories down more. And then you have one meal where you go over and you're like, oh my God, I've gone over, oh my God. So yeah, as much as like scales are helpful on a day-to-day, it's like, if you start to emotionally attached to them too much, it's game over. Mentally, anyway, for sure.
Yeah, then you might need to step away. Like, I know one of my other clients, Emma, who I had on, she went for that, and it's not. Most people make the mistake they just stop weighing altogether, and then they gain heap of weight. Like, you still have to use some kind of measurement if you're not going to do that. Like, to gauge your progression. Otherwise, you go off the walls.
Well, again, it's just having goals, whatever those goals are.
But expectations of what you need to expectations as well. That's not going to drop every day.
Yeah.
Get your averages, blah blah blah.
Also, now I think I actually had to stop getting on the scales for a period of time to be able to disassociate emotionally to them, and now I can get on them and I'm like, oh no, it's up. Okay, why? I actually had a heap of carbs last night with salt on it, so do you know what? And I also drink 3 to 4 litres of water a day, so of course it's going to be up. Like,
but then even a good thing, what Nigel had you, and which I actually adopted from him, where you're in a place where you would use the spreadsheet to look at your calories, and then he would look at it. So you have Monday, Tuesday, and put your weight in, and then it would give you the average at the end of the week. So I think stuff like that made it a little bit easier, and it's just a good learning curve then if you're gonna.
Yeah, but even with that process, I learned a lot, but I definitely was too attached at that stage. Yeah, definitely.
So this was after you probably doing a nice moderate approach. You probably dropped like 10 kilos. You look great.
Yeah,
and then,
but it's probably not until now that I've been comfortable again to be like, okay, I'm okay with the scales.
Yeah, that was 2-3 years ago.
Yeah. So.
And then when we train with Nigel, just jump back and forth. But then one of your goals, you're like, oh, I just want to get as lean as possible, like you said. So obviously that means you have to be a bit more neurotic at some stage. People, I think, again, you were probably more at the advanced level then. Like, people probably look at different. They don't have the habits, first of all, at beginner level, that they're training consistently, doing the steps consistently, and then eating like regularly of the same stuff, which we're going to talk through as well, to be able to then you might start to track your calories and get some kind of awareness. And then at the advanced level, that you might be, okay, I'm going to actually be strict now for 12 weeks or whatever it is. There's no time frame. And then see how lean I can get, because I know then when I come back after that, I'm just going to revert back to my original habits. Whereas people then have terrible habits, try just overhaul the whole life, and then just go straight back to where they were, wasting all that time. But then when you try to do it, when you're like, all right, I want to push, see how lean I can get, just to see, then you start to develop like bad relationship with food. So like you were cutting your calories, and like you probably weren't eating enough as well. And
I think I was maxed out at all levels.
Yeah.
Training intensity, steps, and like in the lowest of the calorie deficit. And that was that was actually not Nigel's fault. That was completely my fault, because I was like, I want to get as lean as possible, but at the same time, I refused to ever come to maintenance.
Yeah, when Nigel was
because
like,
of the whenever Nigel would be like, I need you to eat more. I need you to come up strategically to, not just like smash a pizza, but I need you to come up to a level so that we can kind of
like a diet break,
a reset. But also, I'd gotten to a level of leanness, and I was like, but I've kind of lost my curves. And so that was the thing. He was like, well, if you want to build muscle, you're going to have to eat properly. And so I had a block with that. I had a block with it. And then so actually stepping back and pulling away completely from everything was really helpful. And it's taken a year. Like, we've been out for dinners. I've relaxed with everything a little bit too much, but that's fine. I think I needed that for a period of time.
Again, even when you say you relax, like, someone might look at that and go, what do you mean relax? She hits her steps every day, still trains.
Yeah, I kept all my training not the same, but... And
because you've gone through stages of such like neurotic weighing your food and tracking, you can eye your food off better than 99% of people. But still, it's so easy to overeat doing that, even though you could probably
so
eye it
easy.
off because there's gonna a few nibbles and bites, like that's a few hundred calories
Yeah.
each day. So like we'll talk about like intuitive eating, all that kind of stuff at the end, but yeah, even your relaxed is still most people's like what they're trying to aim for, just to put that in perspective. Relationship with food, I think it's important to talk about, like, when was the point where there was instances where you might have ate something and then you're like, well, now I just need to throw that up, like, in a sense, because that's an important topic that a lot of girls that I've coached have gone through, and it's so easy to slip into that cycle.
Yeah, so that's a really tricky one, and I think if anyone also,
again, we're not psychologists, so go obviously seek help.
But also if anyone listening is struggling with this, definitely speak to someone. I didn't. I went for a stage when I was in London because I was so focused on this idea of energy balance, and I'd started tracking my food, and I'd got watched. So, like, to say, some of the things that have been invented with technology are really, really helpful for tracking and for kind of assisting you in that process so that you know where you're at. Like, because sometimes you'll sit down for a day and you won't realise you haven't moved. The watch will buzz and tell you to move, and you're like, oh, yeah, I've got to move. That's really helpful. But for me, again, because I get really caught up with numbers, I will see in, out, and I'll be like, oh my God, if I've put X amount in, I've got to get X amount out. And we know calorie trackers are not accurate, but nevertheless, I'd be like, okay, I know a calorie tracker is not accurate, so it means I've got to do double that. So I fell into this trap, especially in London, is because I was living alone and I could do whatever I want at whatever time. I'd be getting up after a meal at 7:00 in the evening. I'd have my meal. I'd be like, oh my God, I've gone over my calories for the day. So as not to fuck up tomorrow, I now need to balance those calories out. I'm not going to go for a walk. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to Stairmaster. And I'll be on the Stairmaster till 1, 2 a.m. Until I've hit that amount of calories plus a little bit more, because I know they're not accurate on the output front. So I got really into this like danger zone of I have to exert more than I put in to keep losing, so that tomorrow morning when I get on that scale, it's lower. And thus I again fell into that I wasn't eating enough nutrient dense food, enough protein, so I was getting hungry. So it was really hard because I was living back at home with my parents, again with their beautifully stocked pantry where Dad would keep the granola bars, whatever, and I'd come home and I'd be so hungry that I would binge out on whatever was there. And then I was like, okay, well now I can't get my steps in because it's 2 a.m. So what do? I've got to get this out. So then I'd fall into that trap of like, okay, well hopefully I'm getting this out. And that went on for a while. And
I think it was important to know that, like, because you'd come so far and like quote unquote transformed your body, you were just like petrified of going back. That was kind of the main reason.
Pressure. There's definitely a pressure of like, once you've hit a certain point, even if, and I think this is maybe social media, maybe, you know, you check up on people every now and again, you're like, oh,
they look great.
What are they doing? Oh, they look good. And then it's like, are they just waiting? I had that thing like someone just waiting for me to be like, oh yeah, no, she doesn't look good anymore. Like, so that's why I had to get off of socials, off of that, not fall down that rabbit hole at all, but also stop comparing myself to myself as well. That was a big, keep comparing back, being like, oh, I used to be that, because that gets you nowhere as well.
Then say what you did, like with Nigel, when you did the period where you're getting lean, like there's going to be a point where you can't maintain that leanness. So like your body has to put on a bit of body fat for your hormone regulation to come back to normal again. And but then you were like, no, I need to stay that lean all the time.
Yeah. Well, it's addictive.
Yeah.
I don't have, it's weird, I don't have an addicted personality when it comes to certain things. Like, I've never had an issue with any substances or anything like that. But when it comes to the feeling of feeling good and feeling good in your body, that's an addictive feeling for sure. And so when you start to feel strong and you start to feel like, oh, my body has started to reflect what I'm doing on the outside and how I feel on the inside, it was the first time I felt that kind of meet. Because before that, whenever I'd feel good on the inside, I'd look at myself and I'm like, but this doesn't represent what I feel inside. So suddenly I was like, this is how I felt. This is it. And then it felt like you're holding on to it, like it's this rope that's slipping out of your hands and you can't get it back. But if I just listened to my coach, sorry, Nigel.
And me.
And you. No, sorry, Nigel. If I just listened and done a diet break, actually I probably would have not gained as much fat back. I would have brought everything back to a level and I could have gone again, but maybe I just needed that process to step back from it to be able to push again. But yeah.
Yeah, but even when you're in
lessons.
London, where you're literally pushing your body to the limit and it's fighting back, like your sleep pattern was out of whack. Like you're training at mad hours, so then your mental health's all over the place. Yeah. So then like you're binge eating, like you said, and your body's going to fight back at some point. And then obviously if that food's there, like it's not a matter of willpower, that's just your biology's going to win all the time.
But I definitely got addicted to that feeling of exhaustion. You know, like not even that endorphin release that you get from cardio, like that. It's when it goes past that and you're just like, you've worked so hard that you're like, yeah, I've earned the right to now eat this food. So that
well, there's a fine
sort of fed into
line, I think, what endorphins and like opioids, all the same kind of stuff. The more you push yourself, the more you're going to get high. Like,
yeah, I definitely fell into that, definitely. And then the numbers didn't help because it was like beating my step count, beating what was my lowest weigh in. Like, I was constantly pushing those things out and out and out and out. And then you realise that's not healthy at all.
Yeah, and the same way, like if someone's at that neurotic level where it's negatively impacting everything, they may need to step away from those numbers and have other ways of gauging the progress. But for the majority of people, like they're great because like they're giving you a nice awareness. They give you a little like reward, the Apple Watch when you hit your steps or whatever. Yeah. But for someone that maybe on that extreme level where you were, that's probably not the best thing. Again, it's not to say everyone shouldn't track their calories. You just need to use that in the right situation.
Yeah.
And then, like, because even Nigel was, when you were at that extreme level, Nigel said to you, look, I think we need to step away and stop tracking. Let's just go back to 3 meals a day of fruit, protein, veggies, some carbs, and let's just do that for a period of time to get you away from it.
Yeah.
But again, you didn't listen because all the stuff kind of we talked about where you're like, I don't want to lose my progress. And then obviously, if you have, say, a diet break or refeed, because you're eating more, like you're going to weigh more as well. So then you're like, oh shit, like I'm getting fat. And then
all of this has just gone to waste.
And then it's even long-term fat loss. Like there needs to be periods, like as you see now, of someone might go through a fat loss phase and then go, do you know what, this is actually kind of negatively impacting. Depending, if someone's not that big, they're going to have less calories to play with. So it's very hard to be in a calorie deficit all the time. So they might go periods of fat loss and then go, do you know what, it's a Christmas, I'm going to go back to maintenance calories. And then go again. But it's a good learning curve for you now to see that.
Yeah. So I think now, actually, it's taken a while, but now I don't have the associations with the numbers.
Yeah.
So I've stopped chasing numbers as a goal and started to go, okay, well, if I look at body composition, that's
all the
enough.
Other factors as well.
But also a big part of that is kind of reassessing and for me has been like, well, what's important to me? What are the important factors? Like, do I want to have a healthy body? Do I want it to be healthy for a long period of time? Do I want hormone balance? Do I want my periods to be regular? I want all of those things. So how do I go about those things? I want to walk, but I don't want to walk to the point that I'm like, oh God, my feet feel like they're going to fall off. I want to move enough that I feel good. And that's something that actually I always remember Nigel saying. It's like, you want to train to that point where you feel good.
Yeah.
So that moment you feel good training, that's where you stop.
Yeah.
And you leave. And I was training past that point and into fatigue.
Putting intervals at the end and killing yourself.
And coming out feeling drained and exhausted, and that doesn't align now with what I want from life. Yeah. Really. And I wanted to have a few times where we could go out for dinner and not feel guilty about having a drink here or there. Which again, I'm lucky. As I said, I'm lucky. I've never had that drive where I'm like, I want to go out drinking or I want to go do other things. It's like I don't have that, but I do want to enjoy myself. So I had a period of time where I did all of that, kind of without tracking, without thinking about it too much. I was still aware. Like, don't get me wrong, my steps were always on point. I trained still 4 or 5 times a week. All of that still stayed the same. I just
because you've done it long enough that it's just so pressure. Unconscious. Yeah. Like, we could have gone a night out, hungover, and you're like, it could be 3 o'clock in the afternoon. You're like, I still need to get my steps in. Like, it's not a case that you're taking the foot off the pedal. Like, if someone's starting, like, it's not a 12-week thing. It's like, it's such a long process to ingrain this stuff where, like, you just do it without thinking about it. You have these habits. You just train. You just go. You don't need motivation. So it's a long process. Like, when you're looking at your meals, you're like, all right, where's the protein in this meal? Where's my veggies? It's so unconscious. That's the stage. But that's 5, 6, 7 years of...
Yeah, and it's trial and error. Yeah. And it's also trial and error, and it changes all the time. So, like, when you were working, my schedule was different because you were working. So it's like, there was a period of time where that had to be adjusted, and then lockdown happened. So then we had to adjust again. It's like, even if you found a system for a period of time that works for you, it doesn't mean it's going to work for you forever. Yeah. It will work for you for whatever you're going through at that moment in time, and then you will have to reassess it. So I think being open to things changing, but having a few non-negotiable factors in there that you're like, okay, well, no matter what changes, within my week, I still have to do X, Y, Z. Yeah. And whether that means I'm getting up at 5 a.m. to do it, or whether I'm getting up at 6 a.m. to do it, or whether I'm, I take my lunch break and my lunch break's a walking lunch break, or whatever it is that you're doing. It just, it's doesn't even change.
If we look, like, most people should start and look, what are the certain traits that they've seen that people who lose weight and keep off, they do automatic. One's like some kind of self-monitoring. So they weigh in every day. They've seen when you do it properly, guys get way better results. It's like checking your bank account every day. It keeps you in check. So if you...
I don't do that, by the way. Do you?
The problem I didn't in the past. That's the problem. And then, like, if it goes up a little bit, okay, you might know. But then if it goes outside the realm of 2-3 kilos where it normally fluctuates, you're like, all right, now I need to braille it in a little bit. Self-monitoring with that. Exercise, obviously sounds basic, but exercise 8 to 10,000 steps. That's the other one. Some kind of like monitoring around food. But these are the things people need to have. And then when you're looking at, most people need to go through stages of tracking, weighing, as neurotic.
Awareness. It's just awareness.
Well, we used to laugh about when your mum first seen you.
Oh God!
And gosh, we listen to this because she listens to all my podcasts, unlike you. And when she seen you track your calories, she was like, "Oh, that's not normal. Like you, that's like you have a let's eating disorder or something." But then she actually signed up with me on my online, and then she began to do it and go, "Oh, Jesus, fuck! I didn't know there's that many calories in that almond croissant, which I get every day." So again, it's just that awareness of, if you don't have, you can't
Yeah, you can't
do it long term because there's too much stuff in our environment that just are like.
And to be honest, I watched my mum do that process.
And your mum lost 10 kilos.
Yeah, she did lose. Yeah, she's very good. But she actually, I admire her in that sense where she managed to do it in a way that she never got caught up on things. She wasn't too hard on herself. Very different personality type to me. I always used to think my mum was over the top and neurotic. But it turns out with that, she kind of came at it with like a really medium level of like, okay, I'm going to aim for and I'm going to do. And if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. It's okay. But by doing that, she actually managed to lose a lot of weight and keep it off. She went back up a little bit, self-regulated, realised it had gone back up, and now she's back down again.
Yeah, because she weighs every day. Like,
yeah, because
she's kept it off for.
And bless Dad, he still weighs out her breakfast.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. Like
everything.
We did a video before how easy it is to overeat cereal. I think I did the video where 1,000 calories.
Yeah.
Like it was nothing. And your mum, obviously, like most people, where they tell you, "Oh, cereal's healthy. Have some orange juice in the morning."
But it's just something we've had at home all
yeah, but if you go to a hotel buffet, like that's healthy. That's what people can get.
Healthy continental breakfast.
Again, the problem with the music is so calorie dense with nuts and fats, which are good, but amount wise. So that was the first step. Was like, okay, let's actually measure a portion on that of it. And your dad, funny enough, because your mum's. It's worse than me in the morning. Horrendous.
My dad's good in the morning. My mum's not.
So he gets up early, measured out, which is pretty cute. Because he's the metabolism of a fucking caterpillar. So he could eat all the cereal in the world. He'll never get fat. But so he does that for your mum. But then that was the same way with her. It was a trade-off. She's like, well, this almond croissant is delicious, but it's 300-400 calories. This is like nearly most of my breakfast.
Yeah, so I think she went, from what I remember, she said she went from having one every day to having one every other day to having one every few days to then having it's a weekend thing. And then now I don't even know if I think she still has it every now and again.
But that's the thing where even when people look at flexible diet and they're like, all right, I can. The premise is you're trying to fit foods you like in there, but there's a trade-off. Like you could have that almond croissant that's 400 calories. Say her deficit's 1,500. She could eat that. Okay, that's a big portion of her day gone, and then she's going to be hungry is the problem. So how can she stick to her plan? Probably not, because she's going to be starving. If she could, okay, then that's the trade-off you make where you're good. But I think it's Lane Norton, I bought his ebook yesterday because I'm writing my own currently, plug. And he said it's kind of likened to a millionaire buying a Ferrari. Like, it's not a big chunk of their money versus someone that earned 50 grand a year. Like,
definitely.
So you'll see people on Instagram that are like, oh, flexible diet and fit your burgers, and your calorie deficit is like 3,000 calories versus say a woman where like 1,500 calories. Like, but
also there's that age factor and the fact that my mum doesn't weight train, so doesn't have as much muscle mass, so just can't take on that kind of level of carbohydrate in one hit. But she can, because now she knows how to factor it in throughout the day, that it's like, actually I will have that. Do you know what? I'm going to do it.
And that was it's good seeing that level of progression. Like, ideally that's how long you'd have someone, 6 months to a year, where you can make really good behaviour changes. Like, we started she said, I don't want to train. I said, no problem. Let's just have a look at your food. Let's tweak 1 or 2 things and keep the same food in there, but just like the right portions that fits your thing. And then she'd do her steps. She'd like yoga. And then suddenly, like, she'd see you train and she'd like, oh, Louise, like, maybe I should do some training like that or whatever. Now she listened to the podcast I did on cardiovascular training and she's like, oh,
maybe I should do that.
I should, like, so, but it's, you're not telling someone, you're kind of just lead them to water in that way.
I think one thing does lead to another though.
Yeah.
Normally, like, when you start any journey of any description, really, the more you learn, the more you start to go, oh, then I'll add a bit of this in, and then that gets comfortable, and then you're like, okay, well, this is feeling really easy and manageable, so now let me just, what can I be doing here? But otherwise it can be really overwhelming if someone just...
But that's ideally how you'd get someone if you're coaching. Majority of people, start to eat more protein. Let's start to do this, and then you're just layering those behaviors on.
I think as well things have changed. Like things are changing in the sense of people realise that doing an 8-week, a 6-week transformation isn't necessarily the way to go about things. People, especially of my mum's category, that age group, they kind of want to go, well, I want to lose a bit of weight and I don't want to be jumping around because I don't want to do an Instagram, booty burner 6-week boot camp. So they're actually probably better off in that sense because they're like, well, if it takes me a year. It's
a coaching program.
Yeah, but if you get a 20-year-old, they want it now, they want it fast, they want a booty burner, and they want this, that,
that's the dilemma we had with our one, because like we want to package it into something where people can buy. It was kind of
want that program.
Give them what they want, but then when they sign up, I'm going to tell you what you actually need. So like, although we market it as a 12-week transformation program, when we used to consult with people to start, I said, look, no one's getting mad results in 12 weeks unless you come with me having all these habits already ingrained. Cool, then I can just tweak some numbers and that's easy. Like where you are now when you sign up abroad, it's easy work. It's easy in the sense like you have these good habits. It's just a matter of getting those calories in, calories out, nice bit of balance. Yeah. But for someone else coming, it's like we might change a few things in 12 weeks, but if we want to really do this long term and you want to keep that weight off forever, it's going to take a bit longer. So it's just being transparent. And
then it's also like everyone's process is different. Everyone's going to make mistakes. Everyone's going to fall off the wagon a little bit and then they'll come back to it. Like it took me, probably 7-8 years to get to where I'm at now in terms of like habits established. And within those 7 or 8 years, I've deviated. As I said, I've gone through bad moments. I've gone through really good moments.
Learn from that, come back.
Yeah.
And then someone comes up and goes, sorry, Louise, what's the best ab exercise to look like you?
And you're like, oh, okay.
But touching back on that point, which I think is important with bulimia to the extent, like there's probably different spectrums within that. Like there's some where the people are trying to diet really hard. And yeah, I always go see a psychologist, what I'm saying, within this. But I even used to train a husband and wife. And the wife would fall into traps of doing that because she's trying to stay lean. And it's harder when you have high calorie food because obviously when you're eating out, you're eating ice cream, all these hyper palatable stuff that you can't stop yourself overeating. It's not a matter of willpower. It's like they're made for you to overeat. Yeah. But then after you're like, oh no, you feel guilty. And then so they were constantly eating out, and then that would happen and she'd fall into the cycle. But the same way would try to skip meals during the day, diet hard during the day, and then at night when you go out and have these foods, you're going to binge out and then you feel guilty, and it's a vicious cycle. So for her, it wasn't even a matter of going to a psychologist, it was just a matter of getting her to eat regularly. Like, we're going to get you eating 3 meals, stop trying to skip meals and fast, and you're not at that level yet. Let's keep your hunger and that in check. And that basically stopped it altogether, like, because then you're not going to binge out. But coming back even now, the first thing Rawdon got you to do for this photo shoot was just get back eating regular again, because we know, okay, calories, you can, here's your number, go track. But if you don't have any structure, like, you're going to blow out your calories by midday. And even listening to Rawdon's not, it's not dealing with Gen Pod people, but the stuff he was saying to you was like perfect psychology. He's like, we want to try to do the similar stuff each day. You're going to train at the same time. Ideally, I want it to be like Groundhog Day, where you're eating the same stuff, you're doing the same thing, and not just creating unconscious habits. So you're going back eating more food, like you said, more food volume, veggies, proteins, but you're not snacking now. So you're actually spending more time eating, but calorie wise, you're eating less calories.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot has to be said as well about, if you've got a goal in mind, even if you're coming at a fat loss thing for the first time, it's like, it's just going to be easier for you if you get some sort of consistency in place. If you have a job that means that you have break times at particular times, that's helpful. If you don't, if you're working from home and you're walking back and forth to the fridge and back and forth and back and forth.
Because you've been working from home for the last 2 years.
A lot of people are in that situation right now with COVID and everything. It's like that does make it really hard. And I fell into that trap I've always worked from home since being in Australia, but for some reason it just, with everyone being home and people bringing in snacks and you and the goddamn chai balls, like it just went out of hand. But it's really hard if you don't have any rules, not rules, but you've got to have your own rules in place.
That was the other one when I mentioned one of the things where people keep the weight off. They have some kind of cognitive restraint. They have some rule system around food. And that's one of the big things is what you need. It's not also restrictive, but it's like, it's a structure. It's a rule set kind of.
And so sometimes being given those rules by an outside source, because I can make my own rules. I can't stick to my own rules. Don't ask me why. But if someone says, this is what you're going to do, then I'm like, okay, I'm going to do that. And then because someone else has said it, I'm like, oh, it's set in stone. And that's where Rawdon's great, because it's like, these are set in stone. But again, this is for a period of time. So I think that's a really important thing to always remember, that yes, you're establishing habits that are good habits at the beginning of your fat loss journey. You need to be consistent with those. As you diet down, okay, yes, you may drop your calories, but a bit like where I went wrong, which is where you get to a point where everything's maxed out for you psychologically, emotionally, physically at that moment in time. To be given permission, it sounds so silly, but to be given permission by someone to go, and this is where coaches come in, to go, okay, stop this. We're going to have a week, 2 weeks. You're going to eat more. But the more isn't going to be junk food. The more is going to be, we're going to give you some really good carbs. We're going to give you some really healthy fats. We're going to go higher protein, everything for that week. We're going to take the steps right down. You're going to relax. You're going to do some meditation. You're going to calm down. We're going to reset everything. And then we can start dieting again. Hopefully that gives someone that respite that I really needed, but I wouldn't listen to. So please listen to doing that if this is what you're doing. To go, okay, and now I've reset. I'm mentally reset. My body's reset. I'm ready to go again. I think that's really important.
Yeah, it's strategic, and again, it's the importance of having a coach, or at least getting some nutrition advice. Like, yes, you might make good progress when you're a beginner, when you have so much low-hanging fruit of just like starting to move more, starting to eat more protein, more veggies, track your calories. But there may get to a stage where you hit a plateau and you're like, you don't know what to do. And it could be a case of all these things that are there. But even one of the things here, not talking about coaching, is like that accountability as well. How powerful is that for you? Or just like, that's obviously why people hire us to do what we do as well.
Yeah. I think it's hard to be accountable to yourself.
Yeah.
Some people can do it, and good on them. Like, good on them for doing it, but the majority of people can't. Definitely one of those that can't. So it's having that outside factor is
and even how powerful it is to financially invest. Like, when your mum signed up with me, we're like, oh, I feel bad charging your mum, but then she said, look, if I don't pay for you for this, I'm not going to do it. So like, you have to accept this.
Yeah.
And
that's the same with me. Yeah, absolutely. If you're paying for something, you're not going to fuck around. You've got to do it. Well, for me anyway, that's my trigger point.
But then it's crazy. This is what we found is like, when someone's not paying enough, they're not going to do either, because they don't value it like enough. Yeah. Which is the dilemma, because like, I would love for everyone to give like away here's what I do, but I know if I don't charge high enough, no one's going to do it.
Yeah.
Or not many people do. I think Nick Mitchell said the same thing about Ultimate Performance when his gym in Mayfair, where I think, don't know what the £250-200 a session they're charging, they would actually get better results in like a lower socioeconomic place, because that £200 was a massive chunk of that person's wage.
Yeah. Well, you're valuing something a lot more.
Yeah.
If you're willing to spend the money on something that's for you a stretch, and then you don't do it, you don't get a lot of people that do that.
It's not gonna happen. Yeah. But if you go, whatever, that's only a little bit. It's grand.
That's like Amazon, or not Amazon. Is it Amazon Prime? I've tried to cancel Amazon Prime so many times. Every time I go to cancel, I'm like, it's $4.99, Lou. Just leave it. It's fine. For the odd occasion you might want to watch something, it's fine. They get me every time with that $4.99.
Fueling fucking Jeff Bezos space rocket.
But yeah, same theory. Same theory. Every time I do it, I'm like, okay. So.
Yeah, it's my so yeah. Accountability, financially invest. Same way me learning, Polish. Your mum's like a Polish teacher, but I'm like, I need to invest in someone to prioritize that to be able to do it. Again, humans are strange creatures, but if you can take the advice for free and implement it, cool. But if you're not, okay, then you may need to just to invest in someone. There's a few other points I want to look at. When you were trying to lose fat, saying your own, and again, it was very hard for me to coach you because
I don't listen to you. I know.
I can't remember the occasion when we were out at dinner and you're like, "Now, Sean, you need to help me stick to my calories, please. Like, help me." Okay, no problem. Went out for dinner, and then the waiter came over and was like, "Sir, madam, would you like dessert?" And I was like, "No, I'm all good." And you just looked at me like, "What the fuck?" I was like, "Yeah, okay, we'll get the dessert menu, please." That's there versus someone else telling you. So, if you're in a relationship and you find that hard, you might need to outsource that as well.
I think it's different if you're going out for dinner. It is.
No.
It definitely is.
But there's a difference between support, like the fact that you exercise and I exercise, like you're gonna brush off on each other in a good way as well, and eating wise. So can't remember the statistics. So just basically, you're welcome. Like, I think it's
what
like
are you talking about? I get you to train half
like
the time.
50% of, or 50%.
I'm definitely more consistent than you with training. Definitely.
For someone that comes overweight in a relationship, it's like a 50% chance the other one will become overweight as well, just like bad habits. And I've talked about this before, but I've trained clients, and then it's the significant other is the actual one holding us back, and I'm like, I need to go talk to them. Like, I need to send them an email of. So yeah, if you can do it together, otherwise.
Well, it's having people around you understand the process and what you're going through, which not everyone has that luxury. Unfortunately, some people, their partners don't understand.
Yeah.
Whereas at least it's like, with you, it's like when I've been dieting, I'm like, if you bring those chai balls in the house one more time, I swear to God, I'm going to throw them over the balcony. So you got a box, put them in a box.
These things that, like, I'll use them if I'm trying to bulk up. Chai almond balls. I need to paint in them or something.
I don't know what.
But they're probably
like
the most hyper palatable food ever.
Crunchy almond coated in like a milk chocolate, which has like what
chai
powder. So it's got a salt. It's definitely got some salt in there. So it's salt, sugar, and fat, and it's just
Like, I could easily eat 1,500 calories in these at the end of the day if I'm trying. But then there's I can't remember the name off the top of my head. Rodden actually mentioned it again. Someone that's dieting, when they eat, and this is the thing where you have to be careful eating too tasty food, quote unquote, when you're in a deficit, because the reward is bigger, so you get a massive dopamine hit versus, say, on my maintenance calories, okay, I'm going to get a nice dopamine hit, but if you're been in a diet and in a deficit for a long time, you get a massive dopamine hit, and then you can eat more and more and more and more. It's just open the floodgates. Again, it's kind of one of those fine line things where you're trying to include foods that you enjoy into your plan. Like, you might need to pick ones that it's hard to overeat on. Same when we looked at ice cream, Ben and Jerry's, and like then the Halo Top, that kind of stuff. Yeah. Which is a learning process as well. But within that, when you're trying to be go into a deficit before yourself, you're trying to track calories. Again, you have good habits, but it's just it might be little nibbles and bites here and there that creep in. Now that you're eating kind of more bland food, which is good for where you're at, because veggies, proteins, very hard to overeat on, like palate fatigue. But
and no fat on the vegetables.
Yeah. So again,
that's like key. Like you look at anyone that's like, oh, I love vegetables, and you see them put, and this is not bad by any means. It's not a bad thing. But what I'm saying is, in terms of palatability, like if you have a beautiful salad that's got, I don't know, we've got kale, it's got quinoa, okay, that's your carbs, and then it's got olive oil, which makes it, without the olive oil, it's not as easy to eat.
Salt.
Add salt to that, it's even easier to eat. Yeah. Add some avocado in there, some nuts on top.
A little bread.
Maybe some fruit in there, like some, I don't know, pomegranate, and suddenly you've got a really, really, really beautiful, healthy, tasty salad that you can just eat and eat and eat and eat. Yeah. Whereas if it's just all carbs, so it's like some kale, some tomatoes, some red peppers, some beetroot, they're still all beautiful flavors, but it's very hard to overeat on that.
Yeah. And again, this is, I would say, for someone probably like in your intermediate to advanced, where you're like, your calories you play with might be just a little bit lower, or you might be a smaller person. Like if I think of someone who's overweight, I'm like, that's the least of your worries, so don't really think about that. But for where you were, like, you have to think about the palatability of food, because you'd probably rather overeat. And I know Emma, that this is one of her secrets, she would increase her food volume to feel like she's eating a lot, versus eating something that's probably more tasty, but then she's left feeling like, oh, do you know what, I'm still hungry. And then you're like, that's even probably more miserable than you eating loads of veggies and protein, like, I'm pretty full now. So it's an interesting thing, isn't it? The same calories, but make it a little bit less palatable, and then have more of that.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of people prefer that, right? Because if you're not thinking, like the last few days, I've switched. Basically, I'm probably on about the same calories as I was before, but I've switched to, as I said, just sticking to really plain foods. And to be honest with you, and again, Rawdon's put out, so I'm eating 4 times a day, no snacks in between. Fitting in 4 meals a day, first off, is hard work. Second off,
first world problem.
But second off, but what I'm saying is, people can do this. It's like, you're so full. Like the first day I did it, I was so full from my breakfast that lunch and like the next 2 meals, I was like, I actually just don't want to eat.
Yeah, and going back into that, if you look at like what high volume, which means lots of food for little calories, veggies and then leaner proteins, because it's less tasty, it takes longer to eat. Yeah. So then if I look at your meal timing, like you're eating for say 20-25 minutes versus you get something really tasty, you can demolish that in about 2 seconds. Say like your yogurt, what was kind of some of the healthy,
like yogurt with like protein powder,
quote unquote healthy foods that you just made so delicious, and then you put like some healthy syrup on that and demolish that in about 2 minutes. Yeah. And then you're like, I need more food.
And then you're like, more. Yeah. It's so easy.
So yeah, be careful for quote unquote healthy foods. So I think that's all for today. We don't want to bore everyone.
Yeah, sorry for anyone that.
But what we're going to do, it's an interesting thing. We're going to check in maybe again at the end, or maybe in the middle of.
Yeah, we can do a middle and end.
It's supposed to be by Christmas. When is it?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
So yeah, we'll check back in. There might be a week again where I'm stuck for guests, and I'll get you in. So
thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome for coming on. I'm kind of a big deal in this podcast industry.
Thanks for being your backup plan.
Yeah, it's what on the show or just in general?
Just in general. I hope not in general.
Okay,
get hot in here.
We'll leave it at that. Thank you all for listening, and then thank you for coming on, Fanny Furlong. We'll see you on the next episode.